So Jared has been sharing his dad's journey for the past year, his year-long battle with pancreatic cancer. And today, Jared, you have an update for us on how your dad is.
Yeah, it's not good. We're fortunate enough to get through the holidays, and which I was kind of surprised by. But Christmas was really tough. He was not able to do the activities that we normally do. He was kind of just in his room, and then we go talk to him. And at the very end, we opened presents, like his presents at the end, and he had a tough time opening the presents physically. And then just yesterday, this just happened yesterday. Hospice brought in the hospital bed for the house.
Yeah.
And my brother called me last night, and he said it's not good. He said he went to because my dad was like super mobile, everything's fine, and then last month or so he's kind of been able to walk with a walker, and now he's not able to walk at all. Even like he can't get up physically on his own.
Can you just remind everybody, in case they're just now tuning in, about how your dad was diagnosed and then chose
he
treatment,
chose or he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer around this time last year, and then he chose at his age, at the time he was 78, he's now 79, to forego any treatment. They offered a surgery, but it was very invasive. And he's like, I just don't think, he said, I want quality of life over quantity. And then for the first 6 months, I mean, it was like nothing. You know, even the doctors were surprised. There was like, it seemed like nothing was progressing. And then the last 6 months the last 3 months, it's been progressing pretty quickly. And and we kind of knew that. In the last month, it's been like really, I guess, downhill, so to speak. But the hospital bed's in there. But my brother went to, like in the middle of the night, he heard him, and he was over there, and went over there, and he's like, can you help me with some water? And he was like, he had like this little small bottle of water that's half empty or whatever. And he said, well, he took the top off, said, here you go. And he couldn't physically lift like a 4-ounce bottle of water.
Yeah.
And so now he is bedridden as of last night, in a hospital bed in the house. And so I strongly believe this will be our last month with him. And it could be any day now.
Oh,
I know that's
sorry.
a horrible thing to go through, without a doubt. And what you've been through for the last several months is not the outlook and the situation that it is. And I know it's terrible. The only thing that I have hope for is that at least you had to cherish these last months with your dad and the relationship with your dad, and what you can talk about with your dad, and you have a chance to be with him through this, and even to the point of saying goodbye.
No, and I do appreciate
Absolutely.
that. And that has been a blessing. It's now getting to the point where it's hard to witness.
Sure. And you don't want him to suffer.
Don't
and
want
he
him
doesn't
to
want to
suffer.
suffer.
He doesn't want to suffer. He's ready.
This hospice, I've heard really good things about
they're
hospice.
so
Fantastic.
These people are sent from God. I mean, these are the best people on earth.
They make him feel more comfortable. Is that one of the missions too?
I think that is their top mission, is to make them and the family, first of all, have information of what to expect. They gave us a book, which is interesting, like a pamphlet that kind of explained a general guide to passing away, really, which is, obviously everyone who's ever lived has died, so they've had a lot of information on it. But especially with cancer patients, towards the end, expect the last month this, at some point they'll be bedridden, and then it could be anywhere from, then they might go unconscious for a while. It just depends. They might be sedated. There's just different options. And then they could be bedridden sometimes for a month or two, or it could be a couple weeks.
And that's got to be tough to work for hospice, because you probably get into certain relationships with your patients, and then it's move on to the next. I mean, that job is.
My brother and I, Abe, were talking about that last night. Said we could not be. We're so grateful for hospice workers. I know Katie is. Anyone said any interaction. He said, but I emotionally am not capable of doing that job.
It takes a certain person with a huge heart to be able to do it. And I think a lot of compassion and understanding, and it's not just one patient, but several patients, and they're in your home, and their objective is to make it as easy and as comfortable for you and your family.
That is
I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do. I think it's beautiful.
And to do things with respect and dignity, and to, my dad has always done everything for. I mean, he's married the perfect person. My mom, who's a great person. They're great marriage, and just the way they get along, and just being there for each other, and so close. And that's going to be a big change for my mom, because they've been married for over 45 years, and they spend a lot of time together.
He is her half.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. But the dignity of just like, he went from doing, even 6 months of having pancreatic cancer, he's going on walks and, doing all this normal stuff, to where he needs help, someone bathing him and shower. But they do it in such a way that's just so, that gives the person dignity. And then I've never seen personally someone that has faced death with such courage and peace, and also just never complains. Like, he just never, I mean, and if he did, that'd be okay. If he said, man, I'm in a lot of pain, or I'm I just, I gotta,
Today is hard.
This is hard. This is, there's a lot going on. I just feel, I don't want people around. He's just been, whatever needs to be done, whoever wants to come over can come over and say hello, and it's just.
And that's the moments then, and that's the time that I'm talking about church, because to be honest with you, and hearing your story and following your story, and you telling me all the things that are going on, and it's tough. I get it, 100%. But it people tend to relate, and I start relating to my dad, who's about the same age.
Right.
He's 80 years old, and I'm fortunate that he is still around, and so far things are fine. He's had some trouble, but he made it through that. And you start thinking about that. And when I recently went to Rhode Island to go to a Patriots game, it made it so much more important to be with him.
Right.
Because of your situation. Because I don't know if tomorrow I'll see him. So I just hope you are embracing the fact that you had this time with your dad. And, and I think a lot of people may, and I know it's a hard decision of some people say, well, do you want to watch him go through this? But you had tremendous times with him in the last several months as well, and that's something you probably always remember.
Yeah, and I've had heart-to-heart conversations with him, and the kids.
Yeah,
that's tough for Ava and Eli and Ezra. Ezra doesn't understand, but their nickname for him is, his name is Bo. They call him Bobo, so they're like Bobo, Bo, and so he says Bobo, and he goes and sees him, but he won't.
Yeah.
Did you were you fortunate enough to maybe take some videos?
Yes, we got some videos of him like talking about how he and my mom met, and his side of it, and she was in there too, but they're talking about it, and then like his important in our faith, his conversion story from going from agnostic to a very religious person.
It's hope for Jason. Yeah.
Hey, when did he
hope
do
for
that?
Jason?
He's been a member of our church for probably about 47 years.
And he was agnostic.
He was agnostic.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's why I think we have a weird relationship, because I kind of like,
Right.
there's hope for you.
Something's gonna change.
There's something.
But, maybe you can listen to those
tapes. It has to
tapes.
change for there to be hope for me. Thank you.
But yeah, and so he explained that, some like we had certain stories that we wanted him to tell, in detail.
Yeah.
And he did that. And so we've already watched those. Like, we have them on YouTube, but just links that only we can see and stuff, which we are grateful for. And, he has a legacy of being a loving provider and father, someone who, unlike me and maybe anyone else in our family, doesn't need attention, doesn't want attention, doesn't need anything.
Yeah. That's old school. That's the old school way.
He just does. I mean, for years, my mom had to beg him to get a new pair of jeans after 20 years. She's like, can you please get some? He's like, well, I don't. It wasn't because he was trying to be cheap. He just doesn't, nothing's about him. Like, even when you get him something, it doesn't matter what it is. It's the greatest gift of all time, but he's genuine about it, and he believes in people.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing.
And I can't imagine, because, you see him every day, and I'm sure, and you see this progress. He's conscious enough to know who you are,
Yes.
talk with you. What is his, at this point, he realizes, I mean, he's talked about, he knows that eventually the time is near.
Right.
What is his consciousness about that now? You say he seems he's at peace?
He's at peace and he's ready. Like, of course, if there's a magic wand and he could be back to normal, so to speak, and healthy, he would take that. but he has already accepted this is what it is, and he sees like I mean now he can't even lift a bottle of water,
Yeah.
which is a big change from just a month ago. But about 3 weeks ago, he said he talks about the winding up scene. He's like, it's the winding up scene. It's like it's close,
You can feel it.
and he said I can feel it.
Mhm.
I know it's coming, and you know.
And
Oh my
don't,
gosh.
I know you don't, but I think a lot of people take for granted when you say, oh, he's ready, how beautiful that is.
It is beautiful.
Because I think some people who are in or who have been in that situation are very scared.
Yeah.
And maybe because they don't know what comes next or they don't have that strong belief about what comes next. And it's hard to reassure somebody in that state,
I
that
mean,
it's,
Yeah, I feel like
You
if
have to
I
feel
were
it.
facing, let's say, if I just, heaven
Mhm.
forbid, my time was near and I knew it, I'm not ready, and I'd be terrified.
I would be a disaster.
Terrified.
Mhm.
And so that's definitely a lesson and a blessing and a reminder for me and everybody.
Well,
Yeah.
and one of the things you were talking about with your kids, another thing that hospice offers that we didn't know when we were going through very similar situation with Ben's mom, just a year and a half ago, that our kids are young, and
Yeah.
how do you explain death? And we had never had to do that before.
Right.
How do you tell them on a way that they understand? And the sadness that we felt that Ben's mom would always remember her time with them, but that our children would not probably remember their time with her.
That's true.
Right.
And they would
It's
see
hard
pictures
for them to
and
actually, especially little kids, and
Mhm.
I've gone through this with Everlate to see.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to really comprehend what it is
Mhm.
and what it means and everything else.
and they just say they would say like, oh, Gamma went to heaven, and maybe not necessarily understanding that. But one of the things that hospice does is offer some books that help.
That's good.
And so just so you know that if you that they're offered to you,
No, it's
Mhm.
it's good. And Ava and Eli,
they're older.
they're older,
Yeah.
but then Ezra, because Ezra's middle name is Bo
Mhm.
after my dad, and so he'll carry that on,
Yeah.
which is nice. But he just won't. He
Mhm.
won't know for a while. We'll go over because when we go over, like when we get to their neighborhood,
Mhm.
it's so interesting. Even when he's only 2, as soon as we get to the neighborhood, he goes, "Nana, Bobo." He knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, the house is still a couple streets away. He sees like certain trees or I don't know what because he's 2. He can't
Yeah.
explain it.
Right.
But he's like Nana, Bobo. He knows right away, and then it's just gonna be Nana.
Yeah.
And so, but
That's the unfair part of it all.
But
There's
we'll-
a lot, but
I'm grateful for hospice for you guys. Katie, I was telling Katie off the air, like when she was sharing her mother-in-law Jackie's pancreatic cancer journey.
and I didn't on air at
No,
all,
but off the-
with you guys,
Yes,
yeah.
we were sharing that personally.
Mhm.
I remember, of course, because we're friends, I'm empathetic and I'm really listening. And
Mhm.
you were sharing me, things that I'd never heard of. Little did I know, a
Who
year
knew?
later, my dad would be going get the same diagnosis
Mhm.
and facing a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
And so you've been very helpful in that too, being saying, hey, you can expect this, you can expect that, and I've been able to share that with my
Mm-hmm.
dad, and so I remember they said, tell Katie thank you because there was some stuff that they were able to get in order, just medically and things that kind of a jump start on some things because
Well,
you'd been through it.
That's why it's important to share. People
Yes.
say, I want to keep. There's lots of people who are private and don't want, that was our case for Ben's mom, is that she didn't really want to share any of those things. But I think it is important to share
Yeah.
because other people are going through it too.
My dad it's crazy. He is certainly very private, but in this instance, he's like, I just feel it's important for people to know
Mhm.
because if it can help one person, that'd be worth it. But I'll keep you up to date.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, my dad, it's been almost a year since he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and the family, it could be this week, it could be 2 weeks from now, it could be any day now.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate we have the greatest listeners. We've all been so kind and supportive with so many kind messages, and we really appreciate it. So.
Our prayers are with him and with your family.